Megan, I don't know about you, but sometimes burning bridges can cause wrinkles.
Yeah, and I have noticed I have a few of them coming in, and I'm not too happy about it.
Luckily, there's amazing places like Youth Bar that can fix all your wrinkles and all your skincare needs.
I love them, actually. I've been to Youth Bar, and they did a great job on my Botox. I want to go in for like IV treatments. They've got filler, everything. So if you want to go to Youth Bar HFX on Instagram is where to go.
And if you love burning bridges just as much as we do, right now you can use the exclusive code BRIDGESBURN for special pricing on your first Botox or filler treatment or one of their many other services.
So are we going soon?
Let's go right now.
Okay. This is Bridges Burned with Megan and Amy. Today we're joined by Tamara Taggart, a broadcaster, advocate, and all-around powerhouse.
You probably know her from her years on CTV News in Vancouver, but she's also hosted TV shows, appeared in movies, and now runs her own podcast, Telus Talks with Tamara Taggart.
She's someone who's always used her platform to inform, connect, and push for change, and we are so excited to have her here with us today. So thank you so much, Tamara.
Hi, good to see you guys.
Good to see you. So before we really get into it, I like to go all the way back so people get like a feel for who you are. So way back when you went to BCIT, and for anyone who's not in Vancouver, that's the British Columbia Institute of Technology. We kind of went to similar schools like that, mine in Nova Scotia, yours in Ottawa. Why did you decide to start a career in broadcasting?
Yeah, that's a funny question. Because I guess I was about 20. Yeah, I was about 20 years old, and everybody seemed to know what they were doing with their life except for me. And so I had a boyfriend at the time where he didn't know what he was doing. So I sent away for all these, like, I asked every school back in the old days when you would get like their programs mailed to you, and it would be like an actual hard copy. And I started going through Langara and going through all these schools, like, and for him, not for me. And then I saw broadcast communications at BCIT, and I thought, oh, I might be kind of okay at that. That could be fun. I applied for the radio program and was accepted. So
when I went to radio broadcasting school, we were 50 and only 4 girls. Did you have this similar experience?
There were 40 of us, and I would say it was pretty even. Yeah. I met some really great people. Yeah. I think there was only 40 of us, maybe less, but there wasn't very many.
They used to tell us it's 50 going into the jungle and 30 coming back out.
Yeah. And you have to go somewhere really small before you can, all that stuff.
So tell us about your first jobs you had in the industry. Did you find there was a difference between how you and males in the industry were treated in your first jobs?
So my first job, you used to have to volunteer a lot, right? Now they call it interning. Yeah. But it used to be volunteering, which is the same thing. Intern just sounds like glamorous. I was never an intern. I was always a volunteer. And so I volunteered at CFMI, so Rock 101. And I... my job was to put the CDs in alphabetical order.
Wow.
I sound so old.
I used to do that too, overnight. Just getting ready for the morning. Yeah, I never did that.
Oh my gosh. Well, consider yourself lucky. And so I did that, and I hated it because there was a male DJ who was very, very popular, and he was just a jerk. He was a real jerk to me, and we ended up, working together later. You always do, right? It always comes back around. It's a small industry. So I didn't like doing that. And my first job was in between first and second year. And I was hired at Mountain FM in Squamish to read the news on the weekends and stuff like that. So I did that. It was basically a rip and read, like you were ripping stories and reading them. And then they hired me to be a community cruiser that summer too. So I did
housing.
Yeah. And so I did that, and I drove this little like tracker from Britannia to Pemberton, and I would do all these community events in the Sea to Sky area. And then after that, just before I graduated, I was supposed to go to Castlegar. It ended up not working out. What a blessing. And I was hired at CFOX, and it was a real life-changing event for me to be hired straight out of school at the #1 rock station, and it was great. And so you ask about males and stuff. I would say that when I started in radio, I feel like we were all treated the same. I really do, because there were some really big stars and they were women. And so, one of my mentors, and I mean, I absolutely idolized her, and we're still in touch, was Liz McKinney. And so there was the Liz and Val show on CFOX, and they were the only women and they had their afternoon drive show, and it was huge. I can still hear the jingle in my head. And so I had cold called Liz when I was still at BCIT, and we went for lunch and we hit it off. And that's how I found out about the job at CFOX, which she said, "Hey, heads up, so-and-so's leaving and there's going to be an opening. Get your resume ready, get it in." And I did. And that's the only I just had to jump on everybody else. Right. And so I think that we were all treated the same, because it was kind of this atmosphere. It was way back in the day when radio was king, and like, we were all just having the time of our lives. Like, it was the best time of my life in my career. Like, it was just so much fun. I learned so much, and I met so many people. I would say, that it was other women who were the worst towards, new women coming into, there's this territorial thing. Whereas I don't think any of the guys that I worked with ever felt that. And I'm not saying every woman felt that, but definitely, there was a lot of territorial markings.
And it's so sad, because when you're starting off, you look up to these women as mentors, but they kind of see you, like you said, territorial, or are you going to come for my job? So it can be a little standoffish.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the worst part about it is it sort of sets you off on the wrong spot too, on the wrong foot too, because you think, oh, I have to always be on guard. I see how this works. This is competitive, and I need to mark my territory too. And that's not a conscious thing. That's a subconscious thing. And you're kind of groomed for that, because I remember, we were always told in radio, there's a million people that want your job. Like, so can you not do this? Because if you can't do it, that's okay. We can find somebody else to do it. It's not a big deal. That was always the message. Yes. Whether you were a guy or a girl, it didn't matter. And it was true. Yeah. That's the worst part, is it was true. And so in radio, everything was disposable. And I didn't know that at first. It's the most disposable of them all, I think. Where people come and go and they're forgotten by, I still remember all the DJs I listened to when I was a kid, right? Their names, because they all had these crazy names and nobody used their real name. And it was a real time. But for sure, those early days were setting me up for my career in broadcast, where it was one big, huge competition that I didn't even know I was entering.
So you were in radio at first. How did you end up getting to TV?
So I worked for CFOX, and from there, I was so young. I went to Z95 and 650 Sea Isle as the promotions director. Okay, I was 24, and I thought I was pretty good. We had a lot of fun, and it was a desk job, right? So I went from doing some on-air stuff at CFOX to a desk job. And I loved it, because I loved promotions and I loved all of that, and I loved meeting people. And so I did that, but then they fired me, and they had a real history of kind of firing women. At the time, this is all at the time, of course. And I actually filed something with Human Resources Canada and won, because I had talked to some other women at the time, and it had happened to them too. And that's what they recommended I do. And so I did that. And then I felt I couldn't believe it, because it was so awful. And I thought, oh God. And I had a really crappy boyfriend at the time. And I was scared. Like I didn't, I'd left home when I was 15, and this was really the first time I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
And so I was panicking, and I thought, well, what am I going to do? So I heard that there was a concert promoter in town that was looking for help because he was going out on his own. So I contacted him and I offered to work for him for 2 weeks for free. This volunteer thing, I thought, how am I going to get a jump on this? Because I knew there were other people that wanted the job because it was a good job. And so I said, I'll work for you for free for 2 weeks. If at the end of the 2 weeks you like me, you hire me. And if at the end of the 2 weeks you don't like me, you don't have to hire me. We go our separate ways. And he said, okay. And so I did that and he hired me. And I worked for him for 2.5 years. It was great. And then I heard about this job coming up in television. And it was VTV at the time, Vancouver Television, a brand new station starting. And so I applied for it, and it was a promotions position. So for the concert promoter, I was, doing the publicity and the marketing for concerts we were doing across the country, and like with Pearl Jam, like everybody at the time. And it was so fun. It was me and my boss. And so I had to really think about, where was I going? Like, what was this looking like for me now? And I really wanted to get back into broadcasting. I had no TV experience, but I didn't need any because it was it was a promotions job. It was a desk job. And so while I was working there, we weren't even on air yet. So they didn't go on air until September of 1997. And I got hired at the end of July. They decided, like at the last minute, oh, we want to do this community calendar. Oh, we don't have anybody to host it. Everybody's so busy. Let's get Tamara. And we were in an office building at the time, not even in our studio. And I was like, what? And they said, we need you to go do this community calendar. And I said, when? And they said, now. And I said, okay. And my best friend at the time was working across the street. The office was on Georgia. And I called her and I said, what are you wearing? And she said, oh my God, remember those cute plaid pants that blah, blah, blah. I'm wearing that. And I said, I need you to come over here and we need to exchange. Because I was wearing I was an office job. I was wearing my ripped jeans and a t-shirt and whatever, right? Because we were hauling butt trying to get everything done for our launch. She came over, we exchanged clothes in the bathroom, and I went out and I recorded my very first thing. And then I was on TV for 22 years.
My God, you started from that to then being an anchor in one of the top TV stations in the country, really. And how did that happen? That's wild.
Well, that's a story. Yeah, that is a story. God, I mean, it's, the short version of that story is I worked in the promotions department, and then they moved me to the morning show where I did some traffic. And then on the morning show, I got a permanent job as the sort of on location host. So every morning I was at a different location. So much fun, like the best of the best. And then from there I moved to doing some entertainment hits during the news and just like this and that. And then I started hosting the morning show. And then we changed from VTV to CTV. And that was in 2001, I believe. And so the interesting thing is my boss at the time came to me. So I was still in the promotions department, right? I was promotions, and then I was doing this on-air stuff as part of my job. And he said to me, my boss at the time, the news director, he said, we're switching over soon. They had announced that they had hired Bill Good, and I don't know if they had announced Pamela Martin at the time, but Bill Good for sure. And my boss said, we're putting together a new, team for the news, and I'd really like for you to do the weather. And I was like, what? And he said, what do you think about doing the weather? And I said, well, I don't know how to do the weather. I don't know how to do the weather. And he said, oh, well, you don't need to know how to do the weather. You just need to know how to be on TV. And I said, I kind of think you do need to know how to do the weather. So I said yes, because I never say no when your boss is asking you, do you want this opportunity? Saying no is not a good idea. So I said yes. And, it was April when he asked me, and I thought, September is so far away. It'll never get here. Boom, it's here. And it didn't go over very well at the station that I was doing the weather, right? First of all. So they had somebody doing the weather who was a meteorologist with a capital M. And so people at the station, some people were pissed off, and because they felt it wasn't right. And this would become a theme for me, right? Like, oh, she doesn't deserve that, or she didn't work for that, or she doesn't have the qualifications for that. So this was, part of a theme. And but it was really, really, really awful for me. And it was some of my, I'd say in my broadcasting career, it was definitely some of my darkest days for sure, because my coworkers all of a sudden, not all of them, but some of them went from, getting along great with me to just sort of not being happy that somebody was losing their job, who, by the way, wasn't very good at it. But I guess that doesn't matter. And I was taking their job. Like, I had control over all of this, right? And so it became really difficult for me. And for a couple of reasons. One, the first time I did the weather, I was so nervous I thought I was going to die. And I've had a lot of nerves in my life, like the first time I went on air on CFox, the first time I went on air on, you know what I mean? Like, you have these nerves that are sometimes really hard to control. This was different. Like, I was standing in front of a green screen, and Bill Good, who I grew up watching, is at a desk right there. And I know everybody's watching me. And I know that some people are not happy that I have this position. And I know that, it's just like all these things in your head working against you. And then I realized, if I'm going to do this, I have to do this right. So I said to my boss, I need to get a handle on the weather, like the actual weather. And so we hired a professor in atmospheric science at UBC, and I studied with him for just over a year, and I became an expert. Now, am I a meteorologist? No, but I know a lot about the weather, and I could make it happen, and I could tell a really good story on air about the weather, because there is no teleprompter or anything like that. So, I mean, that was, and then from weather, I mean, there's a million stories I could tell you, and yeah, there's a million stories, and then from there, what happened? It gets really, really messy in the next few years after that. So I do the weather for almost 10 years. It's just under 10 years I do it. And the Olympics come. And so it's 2010. I'm 3 months pregnant with my third child. Nobody knows. I'm doing the weather. I'm living downtown. Even though my other two kids and my husband are just like across the bridge. So I lived in a hotel downtown for 21 days, and I worked 18-hour days. And they have these cots at the station where I would just like sleep on a cot or sleep on the floor. And it was just like, and I was hosting stuff for the Olympics too. So it was like this, it was really intense, but also super fun, but also really hard because I was pregnant, nobody knew. And it was getting pretty obvious, because once your uterus stretches already 2 times, there's no hiding anything. And so I was approached. I went for tea with a vice president of CTV, and who I really, we had known each other for a long time up to that point. And she said, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know, but I can't do the weather for the rest of my life. It's so boring. And I said, yeah, like, it's just like, I used to try to make it as exciting as I could, right? Like, I would go to school classrooms and teach kids about the weather. I would have classes come in. I would go and do like on location things for, the dinner hour at people's houses, like, just to keep it like, interesting and different. And she said she ran some things, by me. And then we had tea again during the Olympics. And she said, what do you think about anchoring the 5 o'clock news? And I said, oh, I can't do that. And she said, why? And I said, well, because so-and-so does it. And she said, well, let's just pretend that that's not the case. Like, what about doing the 5 o'clock news? And I said, yeah, I don't think I can do that. Like that, like, And I think that at the time I was really already thinking about my experience doing the weather and what the reaction to that was, and by some people. And anyway, she said, well, what about the 6 o'clock news? And I said, oh, I definitely can't do that. Like, no. And she was like, well, why not? Like, why couldn't you? Why don't you stop thinking about it so rigidly and think about it as news and current affairs? Think about it like this way. And she sort of reframed everything for me, and it made me look at it in a different way. Anyways, needless to say, there was a period of time where I knew that they were determined that I was going to anchor the 6 o'clock news. And now I was really pregnant after the Olympics, right? So here I am. And I mean, a lot of it is like, I've never told people really about this part of it because it was so secretive at the time. And it was so gross, is more than anything. And I say that because, we had these bosses who everything was a secret, but nothing was a secret. But it was a secret for a lot of people. And there were other people's jobs at stake. And there were feelings and careers and egos and all kinds of things mixed into it. And what would become one of the most exciting things for me would be devastating for somebody else. Yeah. And it was all shrouded in secrecy, but we had some managers who had no capacity to keep a secret. So it was a very stressful time, and I was pregnant. And then I knew that I was going to have this job, but the people I was sitting beside did not know that. And so it was so awful that I took an early mat leave because I was just like so stressed out about it. The only person I had told was my husband. And then I just, I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't live with this secret that it was just gross. It was really bad. The execution of it all was really behind the scenes was not good. That was a long time ago now. But so then they announce it. They're going to announce it. Meanwhile, Mike and I, so Mike Killeen, how do you feel about him being your co-anchor? Blah, 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 da, 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 whatever. It's like, okay, all works through. We want you to be you, Tamara. Like, we don't, when you do the news, we just want you to be you. That's why we're hiring you. We don't want you to change. We don't want you to, just be yourself. Famous last words. Right? Famous last words. So they flew Mike and I to Toronto. We had this secretive, photo shoot and all this stuff. It was just all the secrets were just like killing me.
Are you still pregnant at this time, or have you had your baby?
Oh, I'm pregnant. I didn't have her till, oh no, you know what? We went in September. I had her in August.
Oh my wow.
Yeah. It was really not good, right? And so, yeah. And that's right. We went for this photo shoot in September. That's right. Anyways, it all gets announced in December. So it's a big deal, right? So here the makeup person comes to my house. She knows what's going on now. And she's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, right? And so Mike's at my house. We then take a cab and I'll never forget driving across the Cambie Street Bridge. And I was just like, I was so nervous. I just couldn't even think. I was so nervous because we were supposed to walk in as they were announcing who the news anchors were into the new hall for a big staff meeting.
Oh,
and so there we are. We're in the elevator and we're supposed to wait outside the doors, and then they're going to say our names and walk in. And everybody is in the newsroom. And I kept saying to Mike, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. It's like, it's going to be fine. Just breathe. It'll be fine. Don't worry. And so then they announce her names. And I mean, I have photos of it. And so I can really see in the photos, right? And so Mike walks through the door first and everybody's like, yeah. And then I walked through. No one knew. Everybody knew. They guessed about Mike. And then I walk in and I swear to you, the oxygen was sucked from the room. And I was just like, because it was such a shock for everybody. I mean, I was the weather girl. I was labeled and I was put in a box and I needed to stay there. And so, and then that,
I'm assuming the original anchors of the 6 o'clock news had already been told and were out of the room at that time.
Yes. They were not there. They were already, day before.
Oh my gosh, just the day before, and
that they weren't, that their jobs were not continuing. Yes. They didn't know who was replacing them.
And it's, a young woman coming in, you're excited, you're nervous, and then to come into that reaction too, that's gut-wrenching.
Well, yeah, it was, especially because there were women in the room, not a lot, but one, who really thought that the job was hers. And so that was, yeah, it was awful. And I'll tell you what was really awful is after it was announced to the public, I mean, the viewers were very supportive and happy, and they felt like they had watched me grow up on TV, and they felt like this was, a great natural progression and how exciting. But other people in the industry did not think that. And so, I'm a receipt keeper. I keep the receipts on everything, right? And so there were a lot of people who were grown adults who were posting about me on Facebook, who worked in the industry, who were saying horrible things about how I didn't deserve it. I was just a stupid, pretty girl who got a job and got lucky.
Just using these fake accounts, hiding behind fake accounts?
No, God, no. This was before the fake accounts. This is when people didn't even know how to make a fake account. Like, this was like, right? You think about it. It was, I don't know what it would have been 2010 when it was announced, in 2011 when we started. No, yeah, about that. Yeah. So, I mean, one was, I think he might have even been an instructor at some point at BCIT. I don't know. And then, there was a woman that worked at our station at some point who has a high profile job now in radio. She wrote a blog on her station's website about me getting the job and how I didn't deserve it.
Oh my God.
I printed it out and I still have it. I found it the other day and I can't believe what she wrote about me. And I can't even believe it. It's just so gross.
Can you share a little bit of what it said?
Oh God, I wish I had it right here. I probably do in my piles of papers. It was just really awful that I wasn't intelligent. I didn't deserve it. There were other people that deserved it before me. She just said some really cruel things. And a lot of the people at the station, and now everybody at the station didn't feel this way about it. Like, I had a lot of people that were so proud of me and so happy and so, filled with joy and love. And that was great. And those people really protected me from these adults who were griping about me getting a job, right? And apparently they all seemed to think that I was the first person on the planet to go from doing the weather to anchoring the news. Right. When it's just not true, right? It's like, Bill Good was a sports anchor and became a news anchor, but I guess that's okay. Or, Gloria Makarenko, I think she did the weather at some point too. I think she was a beauty queen. Like, she became a news anchor, and I guess that's okay. Like, there were all these different rules apparently for different people, and I just didn't know what the rules were. It became very difficult for some people, and it goes back to what I said at the beginning, where it was always the women that were the worst. And what that does to a person is it kind of forces you to act in the same way. Because if you don't act in the same way, you're going to get eaten alive. You're going to get eaten alive. And you're going to get eaten alive anyways. But we
were kind of talking to somebody else. I don't remember who, but, just explaining our industry to people. It sounds like the Hunger Games. It really does. And if, other people don't quite understand it, but it's true. You have to play nice, or whether you're part of the boys club or, Mean Girls, you have to kind of get it, like, just find your spot just to kind of survive. Yeah, at work.
I totally agree. And, at the end of the day, 99% of the people get laid off anyways. So, it's a way different business than it ever was. And yeah, it's interesting. But anyways, it was quite a time.
When I first moved to Vancouver in 2011. So as far as I was concerned, you were always the evening show news anchor. Like, I didn't know you as anything else because I was from Halifax, came to Vancouver. I started working at the radio station first and then the TV station after that in 2012. So that's all I knew you as. And I always thought you're so confident and you walk around and you're like the boss. You know, I loved all that stuff. I remember you coming down and doing segments on this, I think it was a sports station.
It sure was.
Yeah. And I was doing traffic on the sports station. And I just remember a lot of the guys would sometimes be like, oh, Tamara thinks she's better than everybody.
Yeah.
Because of how she walks around. And I was like, I don't know her in order to say anything, but also, why is she not allowed to walk around with some confidence? At that point, you had been doing the job for, I don't know, 5-6 years. And I saw those sport guys walking around like they were the shit, like every single day. And there was a huge issue. It was very threatening to them. I think you were very threatening to them.
I refused to go on their show after something happened. So I refused to go on their show ever again.
Really? Are you able to talk about that?
I don't think there's anything wrong with what, I'll tell you exactly what happened. We would have to go, and do these, little hits, like a promo about what's coming up on the news. Yeah. And Mike would do it and I would do it and we would take turns and, you know, Mike knew all those guys and I kind of knew them. Right. And it's so funny that you say that because I am I feel like I'm so insecure inside. Right. But I am an outgoing person. Like I'll talk to anybody about anything. And so sometimes I guess that comes across as confidence or whatever it might be. Right. Mm-hmm. It's more nerves for me, but it's so funny. Anyway. So it was my week or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I'd go up there and, you know, there was always this shoulder massage or a touchy or whatever. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't care. I grew up my career started in rock radio in Vancouver. Like I have been touched and grabbed and felt and like too many times to count, whatever. And so we're sitting there getting ready to do the hit and, you know, the chatter's happening, whatever. And they had to decide what their next live read was coming up. And one of them said, oh, I don't want to read this one. Is there another one we can do? And the producer said, oh, yeah, how about this one? And it was for a strip club. And I said, could we maybe just pick another one? Like instead of doing a strip club when I'm like sitting here, like about to do a news hit. And then the conversation from there was an insult thrown at a female coworker of mine. And then there was this and that. And it just became really, I just thought, I don't need to do this. I already done this. Like, yeah. I don't need to sit here and waste my time hearing about, you know, like the strip club and the pole and the this and the shoulder massage so I just went downstairs after I was done. I was like, I'm not going up there again. I'm done.
And I worked up there with them for years and felt similar things. If I was having some sort of debate with one of them, I remember one of them saying, are you on your, and on my what? On my what? Finish the sentence. And he was like, no, never mind. And the boys club, it felt very, I remember one of them kind of wanting to assert his dominance. Yeah. And I had just started on the radio and he walked in the room, laid on the couch. And I was like 10 seconds away from going on air, laid on the couch. And I was so new. And I was like, I can't tell him to get out. But also I'm nervous going on air and he's sitting right there.
Yeah.
And I gave him the cold shoulder after that for a long time, for years actually. And years later we talked about it and he was like, I thought you were a bitch. I was like, well, I thought you were a dick because I was new. It was my show. You didn't ask to come in. There was no respect. And I found that a lot with them. And until a few years later, I wasn't really brave enough to say that. And after that, I was like, I don't give a shit what you guys think about me. No.
Yeah. I mean, Well, that's just exactly it, right? And I think I just felt like I had, a really wonderful job, and I wanted to do a good job, and I wasn't fodder for their jokes, and that's how it felt to me. And so I just thought, I don't need to do this. Like, I am taking, a half an hour out of my super busy work day to sit up here and wait around, and then, and so I just wasn't into it. But so maybe that's why they would say things like that about me, because I did write a letter and they got spoken to about it. Of course, nothing ever happened.
They probably said the same thing about me, because I also wrote, I went to one of the top guys, and an email was sent out after I went to them.
I mean, the problem is with being a woman in probably any industry is the second you're judged no matter what. So you're going to be called, every name there is, or, she thinks that she's, so important and stuff. I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. I was over promising and over, friendly, because I was so, just hell bent on doing a good job and keeping my job and making sure everybody was happy. I'm a people pleaser, unfortunately.
So then you got laid off from this company in 2018. It has been a long time since that happened. Was it expected, or was it kind of the secrecy thing that you were talking about?
Again, the secrecy thing. And I mean, Mike and I used to say that too, right? Like, well, it happened to them and it'll happen to us and it'll happen to, and it's true. And I think about that often, right? Like, how sad that, like, I look at the people who are working in TV now in Vancouver. Like, it's just a shell of a newsroom, right? There's barely, it's shocking and it's sad. And the only way people get their job is by someone else losing it. That's the only way to get ahead. And it's like, ew, that's so gross and pathetic and sad. Yeah. You don't get the job because you're the best. You get the job because, well, now I'm talking about now. It's like, well, now we just need to fill the hole and we don't have any more money and we're not going to pay anybody. And we, gone are the days, right? Gone are the days for sure. So no, it wasn't expected. It was an absolute complete blindside. And I would say that it was worse than they had done to other people, only because it was a new boss and, and all that sort of stuff. And so, no, it was a horrible experience. And yeah, it was 7 years ago now. And it was a horrible experience. And there were some people involved who how can I say that? So it was really pathetic. It was really bad. They did a poor job, and that's all I really have to say. Maybe not. I mean, right? It really comes down to somebody crunching numbers and going, well, she makes a lot. And I mean, I did make a lot of money. Yeah. I mean, but I had been doing it for a long time, right? Like, I had been there for 22 years. But when I was let go, I think I was the longest, like the longest serving employee at the station at the time. I'd been there since the doors opened. Nobody else had that because people were getting laid off left, right, and center. My boss at the time laid off more people than I could possibly begin to count. Yep. And they'll always blame it on, well, this is the way we do it, and this is and this is how the company does it, and this, and da 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 da, and it's so sad. And then I'd watch my boss cry about the fact that he let somebody go, and it's like, you get to choose how you move through the world, right? And if they say you got to fire these people, and you're going to do a blindside, and this is how it's done, you get to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that, or no, I'm not going to do that. You do, right? And one of my former managers said to me after, well, I said, why didn't you just give me a heads up, just so I could get my kids' doctors' numbers out of my phone before they, right? Or just so I could get my calendar, so I know when like I still had cancer appointments in my calendar. Everything was wiped within 3 minutes of it happening. And I was like, can I please? And they're like, well, we don't have any control over that. And it's like, screw you. You do so.
God.
But I said to who I thought was a really good friend of mine, I said to him, why didn't you just give me like heads up? Because you think I want to lose my job just to give you a warning? And it's like, well, I guess that's how it goes, right? Like that's how it goes. So, I mean, it's all really bad. There's no good way to be let go for sure. And I think the most hurtful thing is you think you've contributed something, right? In 22 years or something, but then you're just blindsided and then you're all cut off and off you go. So yeah, it was interesting.
You said that it was the workplace was kind of a shell of what it used to be. And I know when I left in 2021, I worked with so many amazing people, but it was so miserable there. Mm-hmm. In the radio, in TV, I noticed it, especially in TV, the people there, miserable, just treated so badly. And I remember I had enough. And I did a YouTube video, and I remember you messaging me about it. I can't remember how you found out. I might have messaged you or something.
I don't know. Somebody told me. I remember that now. Yeah, now that you mention it. Somebody, yeah, I can't remember. Oh, yeah. A mutual friend of ours sent it.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just remember, I couldn't speak out about it. I felt like I was working there and I had to keep my job. But at the same time, it was like something's got to give here. And I really appreciated you messaging me, especially because you had been there and you had experienced what I had experienced. And I guess, you just said a lot about the workplace, but are you allowed to say anything else about the workplace, that the mental health issues that you might have had with it?
Yeah, I can. And so after I was, Mike and I were let go, hindsight, really gives you the gift of time will give you, a different perspective for sure. And I was really thinking about the people that I worked with, right? And who I missed and how did I miss that Mike and I were going to be blindsided? And how did I, you know what I mean? And just, you're replaying all these things in your head. And so I just thought, you know what, I'm going to reach out to some people. So I reached out to this woman who I worked with, who I thought hated me. And I know she thought I hated her. And we went for lunch. And I said, listen, I just want to apologize. And I said, I had been told these things from our boss, and I just didn't like you because, he told me this, and this. And she said, okay, well, he told me this, and this. And, and so here's this woman who there was a massive wedge in between us, but the wedge was put there by our boss. And there were so many lies told, to the point where, they had their own situation that involved a lot of legal things. But I realized, oh my gosh, somebody was pitting women against each other. I see what happened here. So then I went back. I had lunch, or did I have lunch? I met with another person who was very unhappy that I had gotten this anchor job in the first place. And after, 7 years of them saying everything's fine, and knowing it's not, I apologized to them. And I said, I just want to let you know that blah, 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 blah. And I'm sorry for anything that, but I look back on it. And it's funny because, when you can apologize to somebody and they can see their part in something and they apologize back is really meaningful, right? And you can move forward from that. But when you apologize for something, because now you can see what, and the other person doesn't apologize back because they don't think they've done anything wrong, I consider that a gift, because now I know, you're not worth my time at all, right? At all. And so it's just really interesting to me. And I was very hurt, and I still am very hurt by the way it was done. I'm also, you have to, let me paint this picture for you. So Mike and I were let go on April It was a Monday, and it was like at noon. And it was the day before on the Sunday. Okay. The Sunday. So the station's having a big like staff party that of course the staff have put together, not the station.
Right.
And there was like a lip syncing contest, right? And so me and Mike and two other coworkers who were on air were going to do ABBA. And so I had ordered the ABBA costumes. They had arrived, and we spent all day Sunday at my house recording. And I had it on my phone and everything because we were practicing, and it was getting good. And then we're like, oh, the next day. That's how weird it was, right? Well, one of those people replaced me and Mike as a 6 o'clock news anchor.
Oh.
And so you end up, here's the other thing. The other person who ended up being the 6 o'clock news anchor, I had helped with their contract for months before. And so they kept their this should have been my my hint. So I was helping them with their contract and what they should ask for and this and that. And their contract kept being stalled. Well, now I know why. So here I am helping this person who I think is my friend with their contract. And their contract is for replacing my co-anchor. What the hell? So it's just so messed up, right? And so I was, not only did I lose my job, but I lost friendships. And so at the time it was devastating. But now I can look at it and go, well, they weren't really my friends either, even though the one person who really broke my heart, I mean, they were the MC at my wedding. And so it's like, I can look back on things now and go, wow, boy, did that station use me, like here I am with my brand new baby who, we've just found out has Down syndrome. I'm barely functioning as a human being. I go for a dinner at my general manager's house, and my husband and spouses and the news director and my son is in the little carrier beside me. And all my news director wants to talk about is how we're going to tell viewers that my son has Down syndrome and how are we going to do this? And I was just a commodity. And, it was like after I had cancer, my boss was sitting in my basement, the second week after I had life-saving surgery, saying, when are you coming back to work? I went back to work after 3 months after each of my kids. I had amnio with my second child and was told to be on bed rest. And my boss had me on the CTV float at the Vaisakhi parade the next day. My husband was livid. And it was always like, I was told time and time again that my livelihood and my children's livelihood depended on me being at work. And so, the side effects from my chemotherapy or whatever, it just didn't matter. I remember telling my boss, they would always send me on location. And Mike would be allowed to stay in the studio because, he's all business and I'm all like fun. I'll go to the river where it's overflowing and stand there. And I mean, you guys will understand this because now I look back on it and I'm like, God, this is ridiculous. He called me and he said, oh, we're sending you to the Capilano River today for the news. And Mike will stay at the desk. And I said, oh, do you think that Mike could go to the river and I could stay in the station? And he said, why? I said, because I'm not feeling great and I need to be close to a bathroom. And he said, well, are you sick or are you not sick? And I said, well, I'm not sick. I said, I'm fine to work. I just can't go stand at the Capilano River for 2 hours. I can't. And he said, it's a big storm, right? And I'm trying to be very subtle about what I'm trying to say here. And he's like, well, if you're sick, just say you're sick and we'll get somebody else to do it. And that's fine. And I said, I'm not sick. I need to be near a bathroom. And he said, he's like, okay, so you want Mike to go out there and you want to stay in and I'm supposed to just say yes because you need to be close to a bathroom. And I said, oh my God, I am hemorrhaging blood. I need to be by a bathroom. Like, do I need to actually
tell you?
like, and he goes, oh, why are you telling me this? Why are you telling me this? Like, this is way too graphic. And I'm like, well, because I need to be near a bathroom. That is the universal code from a woman.
Guys really don't think about that though when you tell them I have to be by a bathroom or whatever. I don't feel well. Really? Why? Well, they literally don't
It's
feel
like,
there with it.
now I know I was in perimenopause and I was like, like I can see that now. But anyways, it was just stuff like that all the time for me and not for, my male coworkers. Let's put it that way. I don't know how it was for other women at the station. I just know for me, I was scheduled within an inch of my life. I was constantly asked to go do things. And if I pushed back at all, then it was demanded that I do it. Like, I need you to come to this event in Surrey on March 2nd. And I'm like, oh, I can't. That's my husband's birthday. Well,
what did your husband say about all of this after all of these years? Was he ever like, this is too much for you? Like after cancer or how are we going to talk about our child? And it's like, well, it's his child as well. And
yeah. Oh, he's been so livid so many times, right?
Yeah.
Watching how, there was just no care or thought put in.
Did he see it before you saw it?
Yes. Yes. He didn't like any of those people, really. He didn't really like any of my bosses. None of them. And don't get me wrong, I had a lot of really great friends, and I still have a lot of really great friends that work there and that don't work there anymore. And, it's just the reflection on it now. I can look back and go, holy cow, that was wild. And, I wasn't allowed to tweet anything unless it was approved first by them. I wasn't allowed to, it was ridiculous.
They really do own you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they try to, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. And the other thing is I was paid very well and I wanted to keep my job. And because, I liked my job and I loved working with a team of people. And when people ask me what I miss, that's what I miss. I miss working with a big group of people. Yeah. I love it. I love having like a common goal, but I'm not sure it exists anymore in media. This idea of collaborating with dozens of people throughout the day to produce a news, an hour of news that everybody's watching. Everything I just said there isn't true today. There aren't big groups of people working. There aren't, it's like the media has taken such a hit, PR wise. And it just got so messy. And I feel like with local news, I feel like the genie's out of the bottle and it's too late now because the people in charge screwed up. And, the big companies that own the TV and radio stations now don't care about local news. They just don't. And I do think that we are absolutely in big trouble without local news.
I think too, for like our generation coming in and they're like, oh, millennials, you don't like to work or you're always complaining. It's this. We came in, especially in media, where if people get let go, they're not rehiring them. They're just putting more work on us, but not extra pay. And then the next thing you know, you're doing 5 different jobs all at the same time, working like amounts that, you're going to have a burnout and then you're seen as weak. Or, if you talk about your mental health, they're like, well, can you just suck it up? And to the point where, mental breakdowns are happening because people just can't keep up. Some people have to have second jobs, especially in media when you're working, because you don't make enough just doing that while you're doing 6 of those jobs, and that's the reality of media these days.
That was both of our experience, actually. We were not paid well. And I know for sure 2021, when I quit at the radio and TV station, I was in the middle of a mental breakdown and I didn't really even realize it until now. I think is the time I really realized it because I'm so much healthier now. And I'm like, yeah, shit, that was a mental breakdown. I was having a mental breakdown.
Yeah. And I think that this is what I mean, right? When we can, it is a gift of time, right? And so I think that the same thing has happened to me too, right? Where I can look at it now and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I was laying on my couch in the basement And my boss was sitting there saying to me, when are you coming to work? And I had spent 10 days in the hospital having my life saved. And my husband was just out of his mind. He couldn't believe it. But I'm like, oh, it's just the way they are. Oh, blah, 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 making excuses. And when you're out of it, you can look back and go, oh, I was having, my mental health took a really, I didn't realize it at the time. I had been seeing, I've always been in therapy just because of, childhood stuff and that. But, so much of it became about work because at the end of the day, things that happen to us, like being blindsided or being abandoned, right? Those are the feelings that I felt when I was let go by people who I spent every day with, by people who I went for lunch with all the time, by people who had been to my house, been to my wedding, been there when my babies were born. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, wow, betrayal, abandonment, blindside. And so those were all feelings that I had from my childhood that had been packed away or I thought had been dealt with or whatever it might be. And now here I was feeling those feelings, but in a very public way because I had a public facing job and just feeling really vulnerable and confused, like why I was so devastated. And it was because it was bringing up all these old things for me that really hadn't been dealt with because I was so busy.
Yeah, right.
Doing everything they had me do. Plus, I was doing more because I wanted to be busy, right? And so, it's just really interesting to look back and go, yeah, I'm not doing well. Yeah. And
I don't think anyone who's not in media really understands how much of ourselves we put into the job.
Yeah.
And I don't think my family understands it. We obviously all understand it, but we put everything into it.
Yeah.
It really does. It is a lot of our lives. And I loved it. I loved it. That's why I did it. I think we all loved our jobs.
Yes.
But after a while, same with me, brought back certain things to my brain and it was really damaging in the end.
Very damaging. And it's interesting because for me, it has been 7 years since I left there. I don't miss the job, right? Like that's not what makes me feel sad inside. What makes me feel sad inside still is the feeling of betrayal and the feeling of abandonment. And so I've been fired from jobs before, but this was different because it was, and I think it really shocked a lot of people that I worked with too, because everybody thought that I was super safe. Everybody was. And so then I think it made them go, oh God, if they can just let her go like that, they can let any of us go, which was true anyways, right? But it just became a little bit more clear, oh wow, they really are ruthless. Oh wow, they really don't care. And that's true. And I mean, my boss ended up getting fired too. Apparently he was so shocked by it. And it's like, really? You fired dozens of people. What are you talking about? How can you not know? You fired all those people to save your own ass. I mean, really, right? So it's just really the hindsight of it all, right? Mm-hmm. To be able to go, oh, that's why. Or, oh, I was having a mental breakdown and had no idea. How could you know? How could you?
Yeah. It's not one big thing all of a sudden. It's a gradual thing. And then all of a sudden you're acting in a way you don't usually act. And the stuff I was doing, when I think back, I'm like, oh my God, I was so sick. I was so sick.
Yeah, I know. It's shocking, isn't it? To look back and go, it makes me feel sad, right? When you look back at yourself and you can go, oh, that wasn't good. Or it's harmful. It's very harmful. And the worst part, I think, is that when you are going through these things that you don't even recognize, other people are looking at you in this very competitive, dog eat dog business, going, she's crazy and she's this and that and da-da-da, and don't put her on TV and don't do this with her. And, oh, yeah, she shouldn't get that other job. She's being a bitch and blah, 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 or whatever it might be, right? When really you're struggling.
Yeah.
And you have no one to talk to because you view and you've been groomed. And this is what I think happened, well, I know happened. We were groomed to not like each other in our newsroom by a certain boss.
Yeah.
And I can see that now. Yeah. And it's all these whispers, right? About like, oh yeah, she said that about you and blah, blah, blah. Coming from a manager, right? But who's doing it to everybody to create this tension in the room because it'll bring out the best in people. And it's like, it was so damaging to all of us. And it's lonely. It's a really lonely place to be when you think everybody is working against you. And it's not even true. It's just your trusted manager has told you this and made you believe this. It's the ultimate gaslighting. It's shocking.
You've done so many things in your life: politics, a TED Talk about your son. You do a lot of work with Down Syndrome BC. You have a podcast. Tell us what your life's been since media.
Well, the political thing, I don't have a lot of things like, what would you do different? That's one of the things I would do different. I wouldn't have done that.
Okay.
Oh, really? No, I don't think I would have. No, I honestly went into that thinking, I have rose-colored glasses on. Like, I'm going to change the world and I'm going to make a difference and it's going to be great. And then, it's a whole other podcast. But I wish that I hadn't have done that. Yeah. But I did. And I mean, a lot of good things came out of it. I became friends with Mo and I met a lot of really good friends. So that's what I would take as a good thing. I've been doing the podcast with Telus since 2020. And we've done 250 something episodes.
Wow.
Congratulations. Yeah, it's great. And I have a great producer and a great boss and it's super fun. And I'm home, right? And my son can't be left alone. And he's got school starting again next week. And so, I've been parenting full time while my husband's been working, and it's been great, but it's also been hard for me because, like I said, I miss working with groups of people. And I'm very isolated now. Like, parenting can be very isolating. And so, I have some hobbies like gardening. And I'm that lady now. And I'm writing a book. And I know. And I say that with a little asterisk. And that would be, I've been trying to write a book for years. And I have always wanted to write a book, and the reason it's not done or even close to done is because it keeps changing for me, like what it should be or what but September is a new year for me. I always look at September as this like new start. I love it. And then if it doesn't work out, you've got January too. Right? Your New Year's resolutions in September don't work out. It's okay. You got January. And so I'm really, that is my goal. My goal is to hopefully, continue the podcast and write a book and launch my kids. My kids are, Beckett and Zoe will be graduating this year or, next year coming up. And my youngest is going into grade 10. And then, we'll see what happens from there. But, it's time for me to start doing some more work. And I don't know what that looks like or what that means, but I just want to be happy, and I want my kids to be happy. And I want to, I think like anybody else, I want to wake up in the morning and feel good about my life and myself. And I'm not sure I would feel that way, in all honesty, if I was where I was 7 years ago. I'm not sure.
Probably not.
I'm not sure I would be. I think that if that many people were leaving or had been let go and the newsroom was that empty and stuff, I think I would find it really sad too. I mean, the morale was pretty bad back then, and because they're just constantly cutting, right? And that's the way media is these days. And so I just really think we need to find a new way to sort of tell local news and embrace local news again, right? Because I mean, it's such a great thing, and people, you don't know what you got till it's gone, right? And it's a pretty sad state. And I really do hope to, like, I know that, my experiences are not any different than anybody else's in media. Like they're not. The three of us share many of similar stories, right? And I just don't think it has to be like that either.
Yeah.
It can be better. Like there is enough for everyone, right? And I wish somebody would have told me that a long time ago so I could walk through life knowing that. There's enough here at the station for all of us, instead of the scarcity model that you are groomed to believe, right? Like there's a million people that'll do your job, Megan. Like if you don't want to do it, like please. And then you're scared and you live with that fear every single day.
So with all that said,
Yeah.
somebody was like, oh, I want to be in media now in 2025. What would you say to them?
I'd say, well, why? And, I would encourage them. I think media is different now. So what does it mean? I don't know because I've been out of it for 7 years, but there has to be space for people, right? And I do think that maybe TV will always be different. I still listen to the radio all the time. Of course I do. I drive a lot, kids everywhere, and we're always listening to the radio. And I read a lot. I read a lot of news. I just think that there's a lot of opportunity out there for people, and the kids nowadays, they everybody's a kid now. They know what's next, and I think they'll figure it out too. I hope they will.
I think it's just coming out in different ways now. People are doing their news on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, whatever.
Yeah,
it's just not like it was, which is so unfortunate too, because when you are a part of a newsroom, it's actually so exciting and so fun.
It's so fun.
Yeah, it is.
And like I said, my best days were at CFox. Like for fun.
Yeah.
I'm talking fun-wise and like meeting people and having to do so many different jobs that you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, what is this? And you just get all this experience. It was just the best education I ever had. Like how many people I met and the things I got to do and the people I got to meet. And it was just so much fun. So much fun. Like breaking into the Haagen-Dazs, freezer that the sales department had. I would be working late and I could figure out how to jimmy it. And I would just take a couple of the hazelnut chocolate Haagen-Dazs, I mean, though it was just so innocent and fun. And I miss those days. But you know what? I think it's exciting now. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for people who want to get into broadcasting. And I think that it's never been easier to tell stories. Yeah. It is so easy to tell stories. And I firmly believe that the only way we can change things for the better is by sharing stories. And we need people to tell those stories because not everybody can tell their own story. And so, but that is how we change the world, right? That is how we do it. And so I am hopeful. I am hopeful for the smarter, what is it now? Gen Z?
Gen Z? Do we say Gen Z? Yeah, Gen Z.
I don't know why we called this podcast Bridges Burned, because that was one big thing. We were always told, don't burn bridges in media. Everybody knows everybody. And even telling these stories. And I love it because, like you said, pinning the women. I had a situation like that. And when I went to my manager to talk about it, he said, all you girls do is gossip. You're just gossiping. You're gossiping. And so then you feel like you're terrible and you're like, oh, I shouldn't say this. But we're just telling our stories and telling our truth. But you're not supposed to do that. Don't burn bridges.
Mm-hmm. No, it's so true what you just said. Oh my gosh, it's so, so true. If I could go back, I probably would have never told my boss anything. Yeah. I mean, I think that my former boss is the biggest piece of garbage ever. And so, I mean,
I'd never met him, but I heard about him.
Yeah. And I do not gross. And what's so funny is so I'm way older than you guys, and what you'll remember this when you turn 50, which I know feels like so far from now, but it'll be here before you know it. Trust me. It's like, oh my God, you just, something happens where it's almost like overnight, where you wake up and you go, oh my gosh, I am actually an adult now. There's no, you can't, for sure, I'm an adult and I don't care about any of your crap anymore. And I will say what I want and how I want and do what I want. And it's so liberating. So when I do see somebody that I really don't like, I find it very exciting. But it is
Oh my God, that's amazing.
very exciting.
Yeah. That is like the best way to end off the podcast. That's awesome. And Tamara, thank you so much. This has been an awesome chat. I really love it.
Well, thank you for letting me share some of them.